Hello, beautiful homemakers. We are reading Chapter 6, Secret Number 3 of Secrets of Fascinating Womanhood. Make him number 1. David's behavior was worsening. His teacher phoned Angela again on Friday to say that David had been caught fighting at school and that his schoolwork had deteriorated further. David was also becoming cruel and hurtful at home towards his sister Tiffany. This, along with his increasing insolence and disobedience toward her, was causing distress to Angela. On Monday evening, David said to her in a sullen voice, "It's your fault Dad won't come home. I want to go and live with him." David's words stung Angela. Her relationship with her son had now, in many ways, become as strained as her relationship with Ted. She was finding it difficult to love David as she once did. When her mother phoned late that evening, Angela poured out her frustration to her about David's behavior. "Why don't you practice FW on David?" said her mother. "Isn't it supposed to work on all males?" Angela thought it was an excellent idea. She wondered why she hadn't thought of it herself. She recalled how Harmony, the FW teacher, had told the class several times how effective Fascinating Womanhood could also be with their sons, and how close it had brought her to her own sons. When she hung up the phone, Angela reflected on the ways she spoke to David. She soon realized she was making the same mistakes with David that she had made with Ted, trying to change him, criticizing his weaknesses, nagging about his reluctance to help with the housework. When was the last time she had admired him? She couldn't remember. She recalled how earlier this very evening she had mocked him in anger about not having any friends. He had stormed off to his bedroom and slammed the door behind him. The more Angela cast her mind back, the more guilty she felt. Then an idea came into her head. She went and found the list of masculine virtues from her first FW class. Then she sat down at the table with her pen and pad and began listing David's virtues. After a few minutes she was again astounded. Just as she had been when listing Ted's virtues, David seemed to possess even more virtues than Ted. Her heart softened greatly toward David. Angela remembered the little gray and white statue of a man that the FW teacher had held up in class. Angela firmly decided there and then that from now on she would only look on David's good side. She would accept him and not try and change him, and tell him so. She felt excited and wanted to start immediately. I wonder if I could do something right now. She arose and went to David's bedroom. His door was still closed. She opened it and said softly, "Are you still awake, David?" "Yeah, what do you want?" David's voice was surly and muffled and resentful. Angela felt her anger rise again at David's response, but she held her tongue and composed herself. "David," she said quietly, entering the room and standing next to his bed, "I want to tell you I'm glad you're the kind of boy you are. I haven't always appreciated you, and I've said some things that aren't true about you. I'm sorry, David. I'm glad you're the way you are, and I'm proud of you. And from now on, I'm going to try to be a wonderful mother, and I'm going to do everything I can to make Daddy want to come home." David remained silent. Angela bent down and kissed him on the forehead. As she did so, she saw his closed eyes flood with tears. She felt a lump come to her throat. Her own tears came as she left the room. She continued to weep freely as she sat at the dining room table and finished writing the long list of David's virtues. The next morning David awoke in high spirits. He did not tease Tiffany once. Before he left for school, Angela hugged him from behind as he was making his lunch in the kitchen. Then she rubbed his shoulders and said, "Such a tall, strong boy." David seemed embarrassed, but grinned broadly. "Bye, Mom. Bye, Tiffany," he called out cheerfully as he rode off early on his bike. "I'm going to Damien's house before school." "David seems happy today, Mom," said Tiffany. "Yes, dear, he is happy today," replied Angela, smiling. Angela also noticed that David had made his bed, the first time in weeks without her having to nag him about it. Angela felt at peace all day. She was delighted when she got home to see that David had brought his friend Damien home with him from school that afternoon. That evening, Angela called her two children together. She gave them each a pen and paper and suggested they both write a letter to their father. They eagerly agreed to do so. Angela wrote Ted a short letter also. "Dear Ted, I really mean what I said in the note I handed you last week. I know now that you have been a good husband to me and a good father to David and Tiffany. I am sorry I never fully appreciated you in the past. You are also an excellent mechanic, and I am proud that you run your own business. Love, Angela." Angela also made a firm decision that evening to definitely give up smoking, and also to lose weight. She would try and become more like her friend Amy. The next morning Angela arose early to go for a run to the post office just over a kilometer away and post the letters they had all written to Ted last night. She squeezed into her old running shorts and sports bra, pulled on the running shoes she had bought several years ago, but had hardly used, and set off. But she rapidly became exhausted and breathless and had to walk most of the way there and back. However, she enjoyed a tingling glow when she arrived home. The days were now becoming longer as summer drew near. It was a beautiful sunlit spring evening when Angela drove to her third class. The flowers and trees of the suburban homes she passed looked fresh and bright. Angela felt a sense of well-being. Tonight the teacher wore a flowing long white dress, with her hair French-plaited down her back. Angela thought she looked like a mother angel. She welcomed the class, then smiled at Kathy, who was sitting in the front row. "Kathy, have you managed to accept and admire your husband yet, as we have discussed in our first two secrets?" Kathy, who was elegantly dressed as usual, said, "Well, yes, I have. Would you like to hear what happened?" "We would love to, Kathy." Kathy stood and turned to face the class. She seemed a little embarrassed at first, but spoke very clearly. A true experience. "Trying to tell my husband that I accepted him and that I admired him was a very hard thing for me to do. First of all, I'm not the kind of person to say something like this. And second, I thought I would start to giggle. I tried 3 or 4 times to do my little speech, but always ended up turning and walking out of the room. Finally, I was going to do it, no matter what kind of mess it turned into. So I walked into the room and started. Well, the look in his eyes was just unbelievable. Never can I remember such a look. He had so much pride in his eyes, and it was not for himself, it was for me. Later in the week, he took me out to dinner and made 2 comments. One hurt, and the other felt great. He said, for the first time he felt I really cared. He had never thought I cared what happened to him. Second, that he never loved me more than he did then. What more can a woman ask for? Isn't this what we really want? And makes it all worth it." "Yes, Kathy," said the teacher. "It is so worth the effort we make. It may not always be easy, but it's so very worthwhile. Anybody else? Has anybody had a Pandora's box reaction yet?" Marina raised her hand. "Yes, darling, I have." "Marina, how exciting! Come and tell us about it." True experience. "Well, I've been a applying what I've learned, and my husband seemed happier. Then last week tension began to build a little. Not bad. Then 2 nights ago, wham! A Pandora box reaction. It seems as if all the pent-up feelings he had came out, and at the same time his walls of silence came tumbling down. Pretty dramatic, and pretty wonderful. Now he tells me he has never been so happy in all his life, and I feel the same way. Last night my husband spent 3 hours just talking to me, telling me more about himself, his past and dreams than I have learned in the years I have known him. "Oh, I just love hearing your experiences. They just thrill me," said the teacher, looking radiant. "Now for our third secret. But first, there's a little saying that's been around for years. We should teach it to our daughters. You'll like this, Elsie. Let me quote it to you before I introduce this powerful secret. A good woman inspires a man. A brilliant woman interests him. A beautiful woman fascinates him. But a sympathetic woman gets him." Now here is secret number 3. It's a 2-part secret. She turned and wrote on the board, "Secret number 3. Make him number 1 in your life. Comfort him tenderly when he is tired or discouraged." The first part of this secret tells us to make our husband our king, our hero, number 1 in our life. The second part is the powerful effect a woman's sympathy can have on a man. Let's look at the first part, why your husband should be number 1. Now be honest, all of you. Who or what do you really make number 1 in your life? Is it your husband, your home, your children, your parents, your career? Elsie spoke. "I think many of us women put our homes before our husband, and sometimes even before our children, too." "Yes, Elsie, some of us do. But isn't the king more important than the castle? Fascinating Womanhood teaches that first our husband and then our children should come before our home. Our husband should be number 1 and our children number 2. Elsie spoke again. "Yes, I strongly agree with that. And another reason to make our husband number 1 is that our children grow up and leave home. As you know, I've raised a large family, 9 children. All of them have now left home. My youngest son left over 10 years ago now. They all still visit, of course, but there's just my husband and myself most of the time." "That's true, Elsie. Yes, our husband and wife relationship continues long after our children have left home, long after our parents pass away. Does it ever end?" This third secret is a lovely law of fascinating womanhood. When we make our husband number 1, our children feel secure and happy, and the love between us and our husband increases dramatically. It's so rewarding. You make him king, and you become his queen. Most women begin marriage this way. They make their husband number 1 until the first baby is born. You know what I mean, or soon will. We have all brought adorable babies into this world, or like Beth, are about to. However, it is so vitally important that our husbands still remain number 1 at this critical time, no matter how adorable our babies might be. When a husband is restored to number 1 again, often his resistance to having more children vanishes. Like Elsie, I've also raised a large family, 7 children. Not as many as Elsie, but what a source of joy they are to me now. They're just wonderful. Mind you, that wasn't always the case when they were younger. Toddlers can be a real handful, and teenagers test us to the absolute limit. But life is rich in our mature years after raising a large family, especially when they all turn out well. Elsie said, "I couldn't agree more. There's a lovely saying, 'Your hands full now, your heart full later.' Our children and our in-laws just spoil my husband and I. And oh, how I love my 21 precious grandchildren. I spoil them too when they come and stay with us, or we visit them. Sometimes they write me the sweetest notes and draw me pictures. I save them all. Yes, class, Elsie is right. We should not follow the world and limit our families. I believe the larger your family, the richer your life, and it becomes even richer as life goes on. At these words from the teacher, Angela couldn't resist turning her head to see what Beth, the young career woman's reaction would be. She saw Beth roll her eyes at Cherry in disbelief. Angela was surprised, however, to see Bev smiling and nodding her head. Helena was beaming. Angela tried imagining what it could be like to have a large family. The idea was attractive in many ways, especially if it had still been the norm nowadays to have a large family, as it was in her grandmother's day. Ted came from a large family and was willing to have more children. Angela was impressed with the genuine joy that Elsie and the teacher were obviously receiving from their large families. However, she wondered if she could cope with the sarcastic remarks of some women who firmly believed that 2 children nowadays were more than enough. Now, let's move on to the powerful sympathy part of this secret. You remember last week how we learned about the sensitive pride of men and how painful it is for them when we women wound it, and also how easy it is for us to do so? Well, we wives can learn not to hurt our husband's pride, but we can't stop other people from hurting it. And they will. Many times your husband will come home to you tired and discouraged, not because of overwork, as you might think, but because somebody has wounded his pride. Perhaps he was not shown appreciation for something good he had done, or he may have been criticized or reprimanded by a superior. Maybe a customer or a work colleague made a hurtful remark. He may have made a foolish mistake that embarrassed him in front of his coworkers. That's very common. Most men are too ashamed to reveal the real reason for their discouragement, so resist the urge to pry. He'll tell you if he feels like doing so. However, this is the time he needs you most. This is the most important time of the day for the fascinating woman. This is the time to heal his wounds. Ignore any grumpy remarks. Make allowances. Don't react. Remember, he is your number one. The children can wait. The meal can wait. Make him comfortable. Listen to him talk if he wants to. Give him at least 30 minutes of peace and quiet. That's not too much to ask, is it? His better side will soon surface, especially after he has eaten. The teacher held up the little gray and white statue again and turned the white side to the class. Bev held up her hand. Yes, Bev? Hey, what about me? I've been slaving away at home all day. 4 noisy boys. I would love 30 minutes of peace and quiet. Several other women made similar remarks. The teacher held up her hand and smiled. Yes, many women object to this vital part of fascinating womanhood. But this is very, very important. Going home to an unsympathetic wife is the main reason a husband leaves his wife for another woman. And always for a woman who is more sympathetic to his needs. A woman who soothes his hurt pride. A woman who gives him some admiration. Bev reddened and said no more. She recalled her painful experience of several years back. What had her husband seen in that cheap, repulsive woman? She cringed at the memory. I'm going to end here, and we'll continue with this class in the next lesson.